My name is Naira. I once believed love could protect me from everything life could throw at a woman. I believed marriage was a shelter, and family was a wall that could never fall. I did not know that sometimes the people closest to you become the storm that destroys your home. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps these emotional stories reach people who are silently fighting their own battles. Naira met Kale on an ordinary evening that felt unimportant at the time. The city was loud with traffic, horns cutting through the evening air, and she was tired from a long shift at the fashion studio where she worked as a junior designer. Kale stood outside a roadside cafe, arguing gently with the vendor over the price of bottled water. There was something calm about the way he spoke, something grounded. When their eyes met, it was brief, awkward, and unremarkable. But fate often hides inside small moments. Kale was not a rich man when they met. He was building a logistics business from scratch, driving his own van, delivering packages across the city. His clothes were simple, his phone was cracked, but his dreams were loud. Naira admired that about him. He spoke about building something honest, something that would allow him to take care of his future family without bowing to anyone. Naira, who had grown up watching her mother depend on others for survival, found comfort in Kale's quiet determination. Their love grew slowly, without drama. Long evening walks, cheap street food, conversations that lasted until midnight. Kale listened when Naira spoke about her dreams of owning her own fashion line one day. Naira believed in Kale's dream even before he believed fully in himself. They built each other in small ways, brick by brick. When Kale proposed, he did not kneel in a fancy restaurant. He stood in Naira's tiny apartment, hands shaking, voice unsteady. The ring was simple, but the promise was heavy with sincerity. Naira said yes with tears in her eyes, believing she was stepping into a forever. Marriage changed their lives, but not their hearts. They struggled at first. Money was tight. Some months, Kale's business barely broke even. Naira took extra sewing jobs at night to help cover rent. But they were happy in a way that did not depend on comfort. They laughed easily. They prayed together. They planned their future with hope that felt innocent. Kale's family, however, never truly welcomed Naira. His elder sister, Mira, smiled with her lips but not her eyes. His uncle, Taro, constantly reminded Kale of how much better he could have married. They spoke in subtle insults, masked as concern. Naira felt the distance, the quiet judgment in every family gathering, but Kale always squeezed her hand and whispered, "Ignore them. You are my home." For a while, love was enough. Then success came. Kale's logistics business began to grow. One contract led to another. He hired drivers. He rented a small warehouse. The struggle that once defined their marriage slowly turned into stability. They moved into a better apartment. Kale began to talk about buying land. Naira finally believed she could open a small boutique someday. With success came envy. Mira suddenly visited more often. Taro offered business advice that sounded more like control. Family members who once looked down on Kale now praised him loudly. Naira noticed how their tone changed. Their smiles grew wider, but their eyes remained cold. Then came the night that broke her life into before and after. Kale was driving back from a late delivery when a speeding truck lost control on a wet road. The crash was violent. By the time Naira reached the hospital, Kale was already gone. The doctor spoke softly. The words blurred. Naira felt her body go numb, as though her soul had stepped outside of her body and was watching her life fall apart from a distance. The funeral was loud with people. Some cried genuinely. Some cried because it was expected. Kale's family surrounded Naira, speaking words of comfort that felt hollow. Mira held Naira tightly and whispered, "We are your family now." Naira believed her. She was too broken to doubt kindness. After the burial, Naira returned to the empty apartment. Kale's shoes still sat by the door. His jacket still hung on the chair. The silence was unbearable. Nights became long battles with memories. Naira spoke to Kale's photograph as though he could hear her. She asked him how to breathe without him. She begged him to tell her what to do. Kale had left behind assets. The warehouse. 2 delivery vans. Some savings. Naira did not understand business, but she wanted to honor Kale's legacy. She wanted to protect what he had built with his sweat. She trusted his family to guide her, because she believed family did not harm family. That belief would soon be shattered. Mira suggested that Naira transfer temporary control of the business to the family, until she healed. Taro claimed it was too dangerous for a widow to handle such responsibilities alone. They spoke in soft voices, convincing her that they were protecting her from stress. Naira, fragile and drowning in grief, signed documents she did not fully understand. Weeks turned into months. Naira realized too late that the business no longer belonged to her. The warehouse was sold. The vans were transferred. The savings were invested without her consent. When she questioned them, Myra's tone changed. Taro became cold. They reminded her that she was only Kale's wife, not blood. That the family had the right to decide what happened to Kale's legacy. Naira was pushed out of the apartment. The same people who hugged her at the funeral now treated her like a burden. She packed her clothes into 2 small bags and walked out of the life she had built with the man she loved. That night, Naira slept on the floor of a friend's one-room apartment. Her body ached, but her heart ached more. She realized that grief was not the end of her suffering. Betrayal was. She stared at the ceiling and whispered Kale's name into the darkness. The woman who once believed love was enough felt something new rising in her chest. Not hope, not peace, but a quiet burning resolve. If love had been taken from her, then strength would be what she built from the ashes. Naira did not rebuild overnight. Healing did not come with morning light or gentle words from friends. It came in slow, painful steps, each one heavy with doubt. The friend who took her in, Rin, shared a narrow room with peeling paint and a single window that faced another wall. At night, Naira lay awake listening to the hum of distant generators, wondering how a woman could lose everything twice. First to death, then to betrayal. She found work at a small tailoring shop owned by an elderly woman named Avon. The pay was low, the hours long, but the work gave Naira something grief could not take: purpose. Her fingers remembered the rhythm of stitching, the quiet confidence of shaping fabric into something beautiful. Customers came in with torn hems and old dresses. Naira fixed what was broken. Some days, she wondered if she was also fixing herself, one seam at a time. There were mornings she wanted to quit. The memory of Kale would rush in without warning. His laugh, the way he hummed when he counted money, the way he said her name as if it were a promise. Grief came in waves. Some days she swam. Some days she sank. Avon noticed the way Naira would freeze when couples walked into the shop. One afternoon, Avon placed a cup of tea in Naira's hands and said, "Pain that stays inside becomes poison. Let it breathe." Naira cried into the steam until her chest hurt. It did not cure her, but it made the burden lighter. Money was tight. Naira saved every coin. She stopped buying anything that was not necessary. Pride tried to choke her when she borrowed fare to get to work, but hunger humbled her quickly. At night, she sketched designs in a small notebook she kept hidden under her mattress. Dresses for women who wanted to feel powerful. Jackets for women who had been made small. Clothes that told a story of survival without saying a word. One evening, when rain turned the streets into mirrors, Naira met Aaron. He came into the shop minutes before closing, soaked and apologetic, holding a torn jacket. He spoke softly, with the kind of politeness that did not perform kindness but lived it. Naira repaired the jacket while he waited. They spoke about ordinary things: the rain, the long lines for transport, the strange way cities never sleep. When she handed him the jacket, he thanked her as though she had done something extraordinary. "You have steady hands," he said. "They make broken things feel safe." Naira felt her chest tighten. No one had spoken to her like that since Kale. Aaron did not ask for her number. He did not linger. He paid and left. The next week, he returned with another jacket. Then a bag. Then nothing to fix at all. Just a quiet hello and a smile that did not demand anything from her. Avon teased Naira gently, but Naira brushed it off. She was not ready for anything that looked like hope. Love, to her, had become a fragile glass she was afraid to touch. Weeks passed. Conversations grew longer. Aaron told her he worked as a project coordinator for a small development firm. He was helping renovate community spaces, libraries, training centers, small workshops. He listened more than he spoke. When Naira mentioned her sketches by accident, he did not laugh. He asked to see them. She hesitated, then showed him one drawing, a simple, strong silhouette of a woman standing tall. Aaron studied it with respect. "This is not just fashion," he said. "This is language." Naira felt seen in a way that scared her. At home, messages from Mira began to appear on Naira's phone. Polite at first, then cold. The family wanted her to sign more documents. They claimed the business had debts. They hinted that Naira could be held responsible if she did not cooperate. Fear tightened around Naira's ribs. She had no lawyer, no money, no power. The memory of how easily she had been pushed aside returned like a bruise being pressed. Aaron noticed the change in her mood. One night, when the shop closed early due to heavy rain, he offered to walk her home. The road was dim, puddles reflecting broken streetlights. Naira did not plan to tell him anything, but the words fell out of her. Cale's death, the betrayal, the documents she did not understand. Aaron did not interrupt. When she finished, he said, "They took advantage of your grief. That is not family. That is theft wearing a familiar face." Naira flinched at the word theft. It felt heavy, dangerous. Aaron offered to introduce her to a legal aid clinic his firm sometimes partnered with. "Not because I want to fight your battles," he said gently, "but because you deserve to know your options." Knowing her options felt like oxygen. The clinic could not promise miracles, but they helped Naira understand what she had signed. They explained where the family had crossed lines. The truth was bitter. Undoing everything would be hard. Some assets were gone. Some could be contested. It would take time, courage, and patience. Naira walked out of the clinic with trembling hands, but a steadier heart. For the first time since Cale's death, she felt the ground beneath her feet again. Meanwhile, Avon surprised Naira with an opportunity. A small community center was hosting a weekend pop-up market for local creators. "Show your designs," Avon urged. Naira hesitated. Fear whispered that she was not ready, that she would fail publicly. Then she remembered the woman in her sketchbook, the one who stood tall. Naira stitched 3 simple pieces with borrowed fabric and late-night determination. The day of the market, she stood behind a small table, heart racing. People came. They touched the fabric. They asked questions. One woman tried on a jacket and smiled at her reflection like she had rediscovered herself. Naira sold 2 pieces. The money was modest, but the meaning was enormous. It was proof that something new could grow in soil that once held only graves. Aaron came by the market quietly. He did not draw attention. He bought a piece and told her he was proud of her. The word proud warmed her in places grief had kept cold. When he reached for her hand to congratulate her, Naira did not pull away. The contact was brief, respectful, but it stirred something she had kept buried. She went home that night confused, loyal to a love that had ended by death, yet alive to a feeling that insisted on being born. The family's pressure increased. Threatening messages. Sudden demands. Naira learned to document everything. The clinic guided her on boundaries. Each small act of self-protection felt like lifting a weight she had carried alone for too long. Strength was not loud. It was quiet, consistent, and stubborn. One night, after a long day, Naira and Aaron sat on the steps outside the closed shop. The city exhaled around them. Naira spoke about Cale without breaking for the first time. Aaron listened without jealousy, without trying to replace a memory. "Love does not disappear," he said softly. "It changes shape. It makes room." Naira did not answer, but she felt the truth of it settle in her chest. She was not betraying Cale by surviving. She was honoring the life he had wanted her to live. When Naira finally walked back to Rin's room, she stood at the doorway and looked at the sketches beneath her mattress. The woman in the drawing seemed closer now, less like an idea, more like a reflection. The family had tried to make her small. Grief had tried to keep her silent. But something inside her had learned to stand. The widow was still there, holding memories with tenderness. But the warrior had begun to breathe. Naira stood outside the courthouse longer than she needed to. The building looked ordinary, almost unimpressive, yet it carried the weight of decisions that could change lives. She smoothed her palms over the fabric of the jacket she had designed herself. It was simple, strong, and hers. A small reminder that she was no longer the woman who signed papers with shaking hands just to make the pain stop. She had learned to read before she signed. She had learned to ask before she trusted. Growth did not erase fear, but it taught fear where to sit. The case was not dramatic in the way movies make justice look. There were no sudden confessions, no grand speeches that silenced a room. There were documents, timelines, inconsistencies. The clinic's lawyer spoke calmly, carefully. Naira spoke when she had to. Mira avoided her eyes. Taro pretended not to recognize the woman he once dismissed. The judge did not return everything that had been taken. Some assets were gone, sold beyond reach, but the ruling acknowledged wrongdoing. Naira was entitled to a settlement. It was not revenge. It was recognition. And recognition felt like dignity. Outside the courthouse, Naira breathed deeply. The air tasted different when you had fought for your own voice and used it. The family did not apologize. They did not suddenly become kind. They left in silence, their power diminished by the simple fact that Naira no longer bowed to it. Closure, Naira learned, does not always come wrapped in apologies. Sometimes it arrives as permission you give yourself to walk away without carrying their weight on your back. Work blossomed in small, honest ways. Avon helped Naira secure a tiny corner space in the community center. It was not a boutique yet, but it was a beginning. Naira named her small line Rise. Not as a shout, but as a steady invitation. Customers returned. Word spread. Women told Naira how her designs made them feel seen, how the clothes held them like armor on difficult days. Naira listened to their stories and recognized pieces of her own. Healing, she realized, is communal. You stitch it together with other people's courage. Aaron never rushed her. He celebrated her wins quietly and held her losses without trying to fix them. The night Naira opened her small corner space, he brought a single flower wrapped in plain paper. For the first brick, he said. Naira laughed. It felt good to laugh without guilt. Later, as they closed up, Naira spoke Kale's name out loud and told Aaron about the night Kale first taught her to drive. Aaron listened with tenderness that did not compete with memory. When he reached for Naira's hand this time, she held on. Love, Naira learned, does not replace. It joins. It does not erase the past. It stands beside it. There were days grief returned unannounced. On those days, Naira allowed herself to sit with it. She did not shame herself for missing a man she loved. She did not punish herself for choosing to live. The widow and the warrior learned to share the same body without fighting for space. One held memory. The other held momentum. Months later, Naira walked past the old warehouse that had once belonged to Kale's dream. The building had new paint and a new sign. For a moment, sorrow brushed against her ribs. Then she felt something steadier beneath it, gratitude. Kale's dream had not died. It had changed hands, but its spirit had taught her something priceless. That building is sacred work, whether it is a business, a love, or a self. On the evening Naira finally signed the lease for her own small studio, she stood alone in the empty room. The floor was bare. The walls echoed. She placed her sketchbook on the counter and closed her eyes. We did not make it together, she whispered to the memory of Kale. But you taught me how to start. Then she opened her eyes and let the future look back at her. Aaron arrived with takeout and 2 plastic chairs. They ate on the floor, laughing at the emptiness that would soon be filled. When the city lights flickered through the window, Naira felt a warmth that did not ask her to forget who she had been. It asked her to become who she already was. Naira did not become fearless. She became brave in the presence of fear. She did not become untouched by loss. She learned to carry it without letting it carry her. The family that tried to break her had, in an unexpected way, revealed the steel inside her bones. The love she lost had taught her how deeply she could feel. The love she found taught her how gently she could heal. That night, Naira wrote one sentence on the wall in pencil, small enough to be private. From widow to warrior, I chose myself. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that are quietly rebuilding after betrayal and loss.